All right, ready? One pad, one bass, a generative drone, a chopped up amen, and some live guitar looping. Throw it all together and what do you get? Lo-fi drum and bass. Stay with me. Welcome back to the Five Dot Loft, where the process is the story. I'm Al Clark. In this episode, I'm responding to a challenge that caught my ear. Lo-fi drum and bass. It's a blend of atmospheric D&B and the laid-back, gritty, unpolished aesthetic of lo-fi. Check out Munich-based musician Mark Renton's challenge. The link is down below. He lays out 10 principles of lo-fi drum and bass that defines a production style that fits perfectly with what I've been moving toward, combining the lush pads and breakbeats of 90s era atmospheric drum and bass with more organic elements like acoustic bass and live guitar looping. So this one's going to be a mix of production process and track walkthrough, and I'll be taking a look at Mark's lo-fi D&B characteristics and applying them to each stage of this track. Let's do it. Okay, so first up is pad design. For me, in terms of Mark's manifesto, the characteristics of lo-fi D&B, what I'm applying here is his number 10, DIY, is sacred. So I'm building these patches from scratch. And then number 8, warm and analog and human. So as far as the design goes, and what you're hearing, these are just basic oscillator shapes. So on the first oscillator, I have this kind of basically tweaked out sine wave. Real simple. I have envelope 2 modulating the position of that waveform. I have envelope 2 also modulating the position of the filter from open to closed. That gives it that little bit of sweep. And then listen, on oscillator 2, you've got that square wave, or that sort of tweaked looking square wave called fifth brutal, right? And then I'm modulating it with that LFO1, and that's giving it that movement. As far as chords I'm playing, you can see I'm got my push 3 going. I'm only pressing 1 note. That's because I've got this chord device down here, and that's playing a minor 11th chord. A 1, a 5, a 7, a 9, the flat 3 on top, and then the 11th or the 4th on top. And so really all I'm doing here is I'm going from D minor 11th down to C minor 11th. Real simple. And then of course I have it drenched in Valhalla Supermassive, one of those tweaked out reverbs. Beautiful. All right, let's take a look at how we build this this drone. All right, next up is this generative or organic drone or ARP, whatever you want to call it. And to me, one of Mark's principles that really applies here is his number 7, which is imperfection as aesthetic. And here, for me, imperfection is randomness. Look at this beautiful Max for Live device called Bouncing Notes. This is I believe, a free download if you have Max for Live on the Ableton site. Now, I'm not going to go through how it is that I made this. Basically, I watched a video, and I'll link to that video below. And I just followed it and tweaked this stuff. Now, I will tell you about my patch here. Again, I'm in Wavetable, and I'm only using just one of the oscillators. No sub, no oscillator 2, just one. I'm in this tweaked out kind of, I don't know, it's like a sine wave with some harmonics in it. It's called squash. And what I'm doing is I'm just taking LFO1 on a sine wave, and I'm modulating the position, and I'm taking oscillator 2, and I'm modulating down here, I'm modulating the frequency of the filter 1. And then on filter 2, I've got a really massive high pass filter, and you can see that right here. So sounds like a sitar, right? Or the drone part of a sitar, sometimes called a tempura or a tambura. And then I've got, of course, some Valhalla supermassive. But you can see here how these bouncing balls create this kind of random pattern. Now, I have this tied in, and here is what it sounds like. So in the track, this is going to be there the whole time. It's going to be sort of this constant tempura drone in the background. And this is going to give me that imperfect ARP, which is going to underlie this lo-fi drum and bass track. All right. That's super cool. Let's go to the next one. All right. So chopping the amen break. This has been like, chopping breakbeats is new to this. But I'm really having a lot of fun. Last time, my last episode, I did a chop in the amen using waveforms. I'm back using MIDI, and just let me sort of go over how I'm doing this. I have a video from a few videos ago that I'll link down below where I go over how I'm doing this. But we'll go over it real quick. So I have an amen that I've downloaded. I put it into a MIDI track that has a drum rack on it. So blank drum rack into a MIDI track, and then take the amen and drag it down into the drum rack. Then you have the ability to play that off of your whatever MIDI device that you're triggering. You don't need that. You can do it off of the mouse, but that's what I'm using. So then what we're doing is we're creating new notes by option dragging down here to a new space and then changing the start point. So, and then I just rename them. So here's the kick. Here's the snare. Notice it's just the start point changing. Then here's cymbals. Here's the second snare. First snare. Second snare. Okay. Then the crash part. Okay. And then a reverse. Okay. That's just right click and reverse the sample. And then I added to this a crash cymbal, and then for effect, I added the reverse of that I'm going to add there. Now, when you go into the MIDI track and you take a look, here's my kick, my snare, my cymbal 1, and my snare 2. That's what I'm using, and in the other one I'm using more. But the basic of it is I started with this, and then you're just simply double clicking and adding these notes to it, right? So I formed this into a two-step pattern, and it sounds like boom, tap, boom, tap, boom, tap, boom, tap, right? Just basic two-step. And so I took that, right, and then I just duplicated that, right? So I come over here, and I can duplicate that to make that longer, and then I just start tweaking and start changing And, you know, I'm not going to do that in real time, because I would say it took me over the course of maybe 45 to 50 minutes to come up with this, which is 16 bars worth of variations, essentially. And so what you have is every 4 bars, right, I do something different. And in the end, it sounds like this. Reverse. Oh, nice. Love those rolls. Another reverse. Here's the big one now. Love the way that whips around. Just a couple of things of note that, especially in here, just want to show this in here, how this works. So this little snare part here, there it is. How these work, it's very easy. Let's say you have a snare part. You have a, I'm not going to do it there. You have a snare part that's like, I'm just going to do it on this snare here. And let's say you have a snare that's long. You can right click this and say, chop note on grid. And then as you drop this down, and I'm literally just clicking and dragging, it will continue to chop it along the grid lines. So you get something like that. Okay, very, very cool. And so that's a part, I mean, man, Ableton makes it so easy to be able to maneuver MIDI notes like that. And I'm sure there's way more ways that you can do it. On some of these, I hit and did them as reverses. It's endless. What I'm doing these days is I'll probably chop maybe 4 to 6 breaks as practice per week. You know, I'm not doing it every day, but you know, every other day, every third day, I could be on like a Zoom call, taking a call for work, and over on the side, I'm sitting there and I'm chopping a break. As the more you do it, the easier it gets. And of course, the possibilities are endless. So that's what we're doing on the drums. Let's move on to the bass. All right, before we move on to talking about the bass, I want to go back for a second in terms of when we chop the amen break, as it relates to Mark's characteristics of this lo-fi D&B. It's number 6, built on nostalgia, and number 9, echoes of an era gone by. In other words, if you're chopping breaks, it's about nostalgia. You're not using new drums. You're using old classic samples, and you're building new forms from that. But when we move to this bass, that's going to be, for me, number 4, right? Authenticity over production. In other words, I'm not going to program this bass. I'm going to play. I'm going to play it live, okay? And I'm not going to use like a sine wave or subs. I'm going to use modern technology to make the sound more humanistic. So this is a sample using Trillion. Of an acoustic bass. So warm, analog, and human, number 8 for him. And so the way this track sounds, what I did is just laid in live what I felt in the moment when listening to the drums. And you'll see here that there's a ton of stuff that's not on grid. I didn't quantize anything here. Let's listen with the drums. just a little exploratory. Nice. So, authentic, nostalgic, but using modern technology to bring that sort of human element into it, and then played live. One thing I do want to mention here is, as far as D&B goes, as far as drum and bass goes, really anytime I'm doing house music and things like that, I'm not coming from the perspective of a DJ. I'm not a DJ. I don't come from that perspective. I come from the perspective of a musician. I'm a guitar player. I play bass. I know keyboards. My technique isn't great, but I know music theory. I'm not an academic, but I know music theory. I know how to put chords together. I know how to put sequences together. I know how to put melody together. I know what the bass is doing. So that's the perspective I'm coming from. I want to play this stuff. Yes, there are times when I want to write the MIDI, yes, but I'm not the kind of person who's going to like download a sample pack of chords. That's just not me. Although I have been getting into the Max for Live device, Expressive Chords, to use it as inspiration. Maybe that's in a future video. Anyway, let's move on to the guitar. I just want to do a little intro to this before I get the guitar and get playing here. Number one, as far as Mark's characteristics, this is a few of them. Number 8, warm, analog, and human. Obviously, that's what a guitar is. 2, noise is life. In other words, because I'm not using an electronic instrument, but I'm using an electric instrument with pickups and it's moving air and there's strings. There's a lot of noise in that system, and we're embracing that noise. And then finally, because I'm playing it live, authenticity over production. That's his number 4. I love the way his lo-fi D&B fits in perfectly with, sort of my production style. It's just a perfect match. Let me just want to describe my live looping setup here. Number 1, I can't, and again, this video is not sponsored, but I'm using this Morningstar MC8. This was a huge breakthrough for me, and when I did the video on this, and I'll link that below, I'm continuing to get views. In fact, that's my most watched video on this channel. Remember, at this time, I have like way less than 100 subscribers. I think I just peaked over 90. But this thing is amazing. It's a MIDI device. It's a MIDI controller foot pedal that interacts beautifully with Ableton Live, turning it into an amazing, for me, guitar live looping setup. I'm also using Ableton Drummers. That's abletondrummer.com. I'm using his one-button looper. And so that's this group set up here where this is my guitar input on this channel. And then on this channel is a MIDI device called his one-button looper. And then what that gives me are all of these audio channels for looping. And using the Morningstar, I can trigger the new loop in time with the global triggering settings, and then I can undo it. It's just a beautiful system. I've been using loopers since I've been using loopers for decades, literally, since the 90s, and this is the best system. The Morningstar MC8, Ableton Live, and Ableton Drummer's one-button looper. All right, let me get the axe, and let's see if we can lay some live looping over these tracks. All right, so got the guitar out, custom built into the FM3 the Fractal FM3, and I just want to go over a couple of the sounds that we're doing. Remember, we're going into Ableton Live with the one-button looper, but let's just hear what I've got going on for the first sound, and that's this guy. And you are hearing the strings through the microphone, which you won't hear later. Nice pad sound. That's like a sort of an auto volume going into some sort of delay that I put with a pitch shifter in there, and then all that's heading into a big washy reverb. Okay, now the second one is a little bit more classic. This is going to be your quarter note delay, and that's going to be modulated by a wah. Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay, so let's. We still recording here? Just want to make sure we're recording. Let's build these tracks in one at a time. So we'll start with this kind of drone thing. I love that little generative thing. Embracing the lo-fi chaos there. All right. Next up, we'll bring in our pads. That drone is playing D minor pentatonic, which then fits in with this D minor 11 to C minor 11 sound. Let's bring our bass in next on time. Probably be a little bit louder. I'm good with it for now. Nice. And this next round, we'll bring in our drums. Let's see what we got here. I've been loving doing this. Smoking. Okay. Do some live guitar looping and turn off the mic. See what we can do. So that's where I ended up. Not perfect, but it felt right. Big thanks to Mark Renton for putting the lo-fi drum and bass idea out in the air. If you're into this kind of process-based content where we figure out things as we go, a like, a subscribe, it always helps. And if you've tried this or you have your own take on it, drop a comment. I'd love to hear what you're doing. I'm Al Clark. This is the Five Dot Loft. We'll see you next week.